The Copa Libertadores is one of the beautiful game's most iconic competitions. It is a symbol of Latin American culture, played in cities and nations spanning the South American continent. It needs no introduction, its magnitude requires no words, but it has a child to its north, a product of similar culture played on a smaller scale. Its existence is a testament to not one United Americas, but two landmasses, distinguished by more than geography. Some call it an afterthought, some prefer to dismiss it entirely, and yet, this child is perpetually fascinating and curiously endearing. Like the Libertadores, it inspires hope, passion, and grassroots love for the beautiful game. Welcome to the CONCACAF Champions League. The CONCACAF Champions League features clubs from North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Under the current format, 16 teams from the region qualify. 4 from Mexico, 4 from the United States, 1 from Canada, 1 from the Caribbean, and 6 from a qualifying tournament primarily for Central American teams. Our Champions League consists entirely of single elimination home and away ties, where 2 clubs play matches in both cities and the club which scores more goals in both of them combined advances. The CONCACAF Champions League started in 2008. The tournament actually dates back to 1962 in the form of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, but it had some problems. Firstly, the format was extremely inconsistent. Qualification criteria was described as needlessly complicated and even irrational, especially for a competition whose format would seemingly change every year. Historical data and records are inconsistent and missing from editions as late as the 1990s. Vague mentions of crowd violence, licensing issues, and administrative oversights are listed in what records do exist. In some instances, teams won just because all of their competitors were disqualified. Some editions of the tournament were even left abandoned, deemed not worthwhile to continue playing. Attempts to revamp the tournament into something more respectable were proposed as early as 2001, but the new tournament would not arrive until 2008. Although it's a young competition, it's had enough time to create history and storylines for itself, and there is one storyline in particular that dominates discussion about the competition.
Oh my goodness, it's in for Santos from beyond midfield! Shocking in 10 minutes.
Let's take a look at every confederation listed by how many countries have had a club win their Champions League since 2009. CAF and AFC have had teams from 6 different countries win their Champions League in the last 11 competitions, and for UEFA, CONMEBOL, and OFC, that number is 3. For CONCACAF, that number is 1. Mexican clubs have won every single edition of the CONCACAF Champions League. Not only have all 11 champions come from Mexico, 19 out of the 22 finalists did. The Mexican clubs have played home and away ties against non-Mexican opposition 58 times. They have advanced in 52 of those ties, or 90%. This is not a fluke. This is not a statistical anomaly. This is pure dominance. Mexico's closest competitors lie to their immediate north. All 6 of those losses came to MLS clubs. Likewise, the only 3 non-Mexican finalists were also all MLS clubs. This creates a dynamic where the winning team in ties can usually be predicted just by looking at what countries the 2 teams are from. There's a hierarchy. Mexico is on top, MLS is below it, Central America is further down, and the Caribbean is at the very bottom. This hierarchy is even recognized in the way tournaments are organized. Caribbean clubs first have to play in either the Caribbean Club Championship or the Caribbean Club Shield. One team from the former goes straight to the Champions League, while the other finalists qualify for the CONCACAF League, where they have to fight against Central American clubs for spots in the Champions League. After earning their spot in the Champions League, Central American and Caribbean clubs are always drawn against Mexican and MLS teams in the first round. If you're playing an MLS team, you better play the best you've ever played. And if you get drawn against a Mexican club, hope for a miracle. History has shown there's no alternatives. So, why does the hierarchy exist? Well, Mexico is one of the biggest footballing nations in the world. For years, they sent teams to the Copa Libertadores, where they would compete against the best from South America. Though Mexico's best teams were forced to participate in the CONCACAF Champions League, the teams left over still managed to reach the Libertadores finals 3 times. That is no small accomplishment. Mexican clubs had to fight through biased officiating, harsh stadiums, and unforgiving atmospheres. A schedule change forced 2016 to be their last year participating. In CONMEBOL, they were unwelcome visitors. In CONCACAF, they were, and still are, kings. While the United States and Canada are large, rich countries, today's MLS, only 25 years old, is the closest they've ever come to any sort of demand for the sport. Restrictive roster rules hinder spending on players for even its best teams, and MLS finds themselves competing against the NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL for money and fans. Mexico's teams have been around 3 times as long. Large corporations sponsor and own their teams with payrolls similar to NHL franchises, and Liga MX, their top league, experiences some of the best TV ratings and turnouts in the world, a byproduct of being the most popular sporting league in a country of 120 million people. To MLS, their place in the hierarchy reflects the struggle to build a respectable and legitimate league in the eyes of both fans and the American public. Central American leagues are popular in the countries they play in, but Mexican money dwarfs the resources of all 7 countries combined. As a result, the resources Central America does have are typically concentrated in just 1 or 2 teams in each country. Their place in the hierarchy, overshadowed by its northern neighbors, is a metaphor for far more than sports. Even over a short period of time, the hierarchy has created an intrigue into the tournament. It is common for fans to root for teams from their home countries or leagues, even if that means rooting for a rival of their favorite team. After all, every international match is a chance to upstage the hierarchy and increase the profile of their league, country, and region. And the tournament's history is littered with the stories of teams who tried.